Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. Thanks so much for your patience as we get everything organized to get started. Um, since we are a couple minutes past 8 already, I'm just going to go ahead and start introductions and we can get going. So I want to say good afternoon again, and thank you so much for joining us. If you don't know me already, my name is Holly Mays. I'm the Assistant Director of Governmental Affairs here with Associated Students. Today's training session is Anti-Blackness Awareness, and this is going to be facilitated by Alinta from the BSU. Just so everyone knows, in our audience today, we have executive officers, senators, and student leadership from our boards, commissions, and units. I also want to encourage you to please make the most of this learning opportunity and participate as much as you are able. While engaging with this work, please do so with respect and sensitivity for one another and for the topic at hand. And also please take care of yourselves during the session and take a break or space if you need it. There's also a few speaking agreements to help us facilitate our conversation today, and Alinta may add on to this, but just for our housekeeping, I want to add these. Please utilize the hand raise function to indicate you have a question. This is going to help reduce interruptions and allow anyone who wants to share to be heard. If at any point you have any questions, please feel free to add those to the chat, or you can message me directly if you have a question. I'm going to be here in the session today for staff support. And also, please share what is learned here rather than sharing personal details of somebody's story. And please approach this topic with open-mindedness and curiosity. One last bit of housekeeping is to please note that this session is being recorded and will be posted online. We don't want the recording to be a barrier for your participation and engagement today. So if you have a concern with being recorded, please send me an email after the session or send me a chat so we can work to address this concern. And also please note there will be a checkout form posted in the chat at the end of the session. In order to be credited for the session, you will need to complete this form. We expect today's session to be about 2 hours, so we thank you for your time and attention and engagement today, and I will now pass it to Alinta. Thank you.
Okay, hi guys, my name's Alinta. I am currently BSU's retention director, and I will be ESA's co-chair for the upcoming 2020 and 2021 school year. And I wanted to kind of make this conversation a little more casual and more of a question-answer format instead of me just kind of lecturing you, because at the same time, I want this to be just a really open conversation and allow you guys to ask honest questions, and I can help create more awareness and make sure that our campus is a safe space and continues to be a safe space for all students, regardless of sexuality, gender identity, and skin color. And yeah, just that's it. Any questions so far? Okay, well, I guess some points that I should bring up for today is just kind of what have been happening the past couple of months with concepts on police brutality and protests and the Black Lives Matter movement that has been going on since late May. And I guess the biggest conflict is the idea of ACAB. I remember like having this conversation with my family members, and I guess the whole misconception is that, you know, I guess all cops are bad, but it's not in the sense that, that it's the individual, but it is the system that has been benefiting the predominantly white and institutionalized patriarchy. And hold on, I got some questions. Okay. So UCSB is, I guess you would say, a predominantly white institution. And at the same time, they have responded to, obviously they've condemned racial intolerance and violence against minorities, especially on campus. The one thing I would encourage the campus to continue doing is create more spaces and to allow conversations like these, and just make sure that Black students are being accommodated as they should be, because especially during times like this, it can be really difficult to continue as life normally when obviously the system isn't going to change, and we still have to work twice as hard for some of the things that certain groups are able to get more easily, especially just in the workforce and in society, and how Black people are perceived, and kind of having to like break that stereotype and be more acceptable, especially at this type of institution. And it can be very overwhelming, and it can cause a lot of pressure on Black students. So I would just say be mindful and be aware that your peers have been going through a lot these past couple of months, and just be a little more easier and kind of be more considerate on how Black students have been going through a lot these past few months, and then just be more considerate on that. And especially like in the academic space, because it can be kind of difficult to like do your homework and schoolwork when you know people that look like you are getting brutalized, especially on the media and stuff, and story reshares of people looking like you getting brutalized, and then it can be overwhelming. Okay, next question. How do you define anti-Blackness? Okay, so anti-Blackness is a concept that is very widespread in the context that anti-Blackness is rooted, I would say, in a lot of cultures, not just, an African American to a non-African American. It could be even within African groups, and groups that like aren't, basically it's this color of your skin almost kind of defines your worth as a human being. And at the same time, like, that obviously sounds ridiculous, but in the context of a real world, like, it does have importance, and it can take a toll, especially on a darker skinned individual when they see a lighter skinned peer getting treated better than them. And I think one important thing to keep in mind is to remember that at the end of the day, there is no such thing as one type of Blackness. It's a spectrum, especially in different cultures and stuff, because of the kind of going back into history, the transatlantic slave trade. The diaspora of Blackness has been defined in multiple different cultures and ethnicities, and it's really important to keep in mind that there is no one identity for Blackness, and it is a spectrum to keep in mind. And when you kind of take that into consideration, you realize how colorism has had a huge effect on society and Eurocentrism, to the point where you have people in their same community going against each other. So just keep that in mind, that it's very important to remember that history and kind of keep that in mind, and when you are, and basically like just kind of think twice when you're talking to a Black peer, especially you want to be more considerate on how they might be feeling towards certain situations and um, how they might kind of take certain comments to heart, especially comments about like physical features, because featureism is also rooted into colorism, and um, kind of being more mindful that your words can like take a toll on people and kind of create an identity crisis. So just kind of keep that in mind. I'm trying to go through as many questions as I can. Okay. So kind of going back into what I was saying previously on how to like communicate with Black people on campus is just remember, like, we're also students as well. We're like just like you, going to class, minding our own business, trying to get our grades up, and you know, try to realize, especially like in STEM spaces, I'm a STEM major, in STEM spaces, there aren't a lot of Black people in those spaces. So a lot of the times, students can feel underrepresented in those spaces. So I would just, remember to understand that they are not lesser or greater just because they're in a certain major and they're a certain ethnicity, and keep in mind that again they're a student just like you, and obviously they got into that space for a reason. They're there for a reason, not just for their skin color or whether they're being a minority or trying to think, just that, remember that they're there on their own merit, and UCSB students are there for a reason, and obviously just kind of treat them equally as your peer and not just because of their skin color. How was your first, okay, let me go to, I guess, my first experience as a UCSB student. So I think my experience personally was really, really good. I really, really love this campus, especially what BSU has done for Black students on campus. I really, really appreciated the spaces that they've created, especially like the Black Scholars Hall in Santa Rosa, and BSU events, especially on campus. Some of them open to non-Black students. And I think however, the kind of intimidating aspect was when I wasn't in those BSU spaces and was outside into UCSB. Because again, UCSB is, it's not a HBCU. It's not majority Black. And, not everyone in my class looks like me. And not everyone in my class, went through the same stuff as I did. So it can be a little intimidating, I guess. But at the same time, it was also empowering to me because I can be like, hey, I'm in this space with these people as well. I can show them that, I am a student as well, and that I can, accomplish the same amount of stuff as they did. And I can continue being a student and, continue living and just kind of going on from there. And then another thing I guess I would bring up is kind of I guess it's like it is a little intimidating just kind of walking on campus and, not seeing people that look like you all the time. But it's okay because those spaces in the SRB or the MCC, those spaces are on campus is what's so important. And, it might, to some people, it might be like, oh, well, why don't you just, unite everyone and break down all those ethnic barriers. But then at the same time, if we create a melting pot, everyone blends in with each other and ends up, not having their individuality. I heard like this metaphor a while ago, and it's like you want to treat spaces as a bowl of salad, not a melting pot, because the salad has, while it's still mixed together, it has its individual components that make each part, unique. But in the melting pot, everything has been kind of blended together and is kind of monotone, if that makes sense. So I really want the UCSB campus to feel like a salad bowl and not a melting pot. That's my take on that. How can non-Black? Okay. I think one of the best things for non-Black students to do is be very, very understanding of how exhausting it has been and how exhausting it will be in the future. And, kind of bombarding your Black peers with questions, asking, oh, how should I respond to this? How should I, where are the resources that I can educate myself, or please educate myself? It can be kind of a daunting task because there's so many topics to be talked about. So when you say, please educate me, it's like, okay, but what aspect do you want to be educated on? Because I can make a 10-page bullet note, like essay on all the stuff that, people would do to make me feel better, I guess, or make me feel more comfortable. But one of the greatest things I think non-Black people can do is, I guess Google is a resource, YouTube, look for podcasts of Black podcasts and Black resources. And I would say kind of consume the same amount of media as your Black peers do, because then you might be able to relate or try to understand some of the topics and references that they make, without you having to ask for the resources from them. And to me personally, I really, really appreciate it when people go out of their way to educate themselves beyond Instagram story repost or something. Those Instagram story reposts are very helpful, but at the same time, it's such a limited amount of information because you can only put so much information on there. But when you go out of your way to look up resources such as like articles, books, podcasts, those are going to be very essential in your understanding of Black students. And then from there, you can use that as a launching pad to facilitate more conversations with your Black peers. And then remember, at the end of the day, they're people just like you. They just want to, enjoy life, be college kids, and not have to worry about, kind of bearing the weight of their identity on campus, and kind of having to worry, if they're safe in certain locations, or, kind of when they have to duck down when there's a police car, and, just kind of making Black students on campus feel more and more like a student and not just their skin color is going to be very beneficial, I feel, for this mental health state of Black students on campus. Another thing I would like to add is when you are discussing, heavy topics with your Black peers, it's very important to kind of understand and realize that, their feelings are valid. And if they say something that you might not agree with, or you might kind of look into your life and be like, hey, this is not what the idea that I grew up with, or this is not the mindset that I had growing up. You need to, I guess, I keep saying you, but I want to make this a universal statement, but it's very important to understand that everybody in life grows up with a different mindset and a different, way that they're raised or how they grew up, and not everybody is the same. So when people when you're communicating with people, especially of different races and ethnicities, it's very important to understand and be open-minded, especially to different ideas and concepts. Especially when, I guess this is the thing I'll bring up, when I was little and I would talk about my hair, people would be like, ew, that's gross. Why would you wash your hair only once a week? Well, you don't have the same hair as me. So how can you tell me how to take care of myself? It's like, or if I eat a certain thing and then people are like, oh, but why are you eating that? That's so weird. Well, in my culture, it's weird to you, but what you do in your culture is weird to me. So again, it's that understanding that, people were raised different and people grew up differently. So, your model of life is not the model for everybody else's. If that makes sense. Another question. Okay, how can we? So, I guess one of the greatest ways you could amplify Black voices on campus is to make sure that Black voices are heard in the sense of representation, because you can still amplify and speak out for Black students on campus. That's great. We want you to speak out, but at the same time, I feel like what has helped me the most and what has helped my friends and my peers the most is creating spaces, and especially creating safe spaces for Black students on campus, and making sure that BSU is getting the amount of funds that they need to be able to host a GBM, or making sure ISA has enough funds to go on a to be able to, okay, I was gonna say go on retreat, but then I remembered we're in a pandemic. To create I guess care gifts for ISA members, and then making sure that BSU is not just that the Black Kids Club on campus, but it's also a very important space for a lot of your peers on campus. And I guess what I'm trying to say, because I'm kind of like rambling right now, is making space for us is very important, especially since UCSB is majority white. Like in general, there already isn't a lot of space. And making sure like when these spaces are created, kind of be mindful not to infiltrate certain spaces at certain times, especially during like trying times like these. BSU is going into, for our theme, we're going into healing, and we're trying our best to heal our community right now. And I guess with the whole pandemic and kind of being online is not really that hard and not that easy to infiltrate our spaces. But I guess when moving forward, because this isn't just like, I guess, a talk for like the next year, but like I want this to like kind of be something like a permanent mindset. So once the pandemic, I guess, kind of subsides and we kind of go back to life as normal, when Black students are congregating in a space, or they are hosting an event, or like creating a party or something, it's very important to not just be like, oh, there's free food there, let's go, because that space might have not been intended for non-Black students. And then it could be kind of a little bit like, oh, well, why are they there? You know, because like this space was made for us. This safe space is kind of something that is like one of the only things that we have on campus. So it's very important to be considerate and be mindful, you know, when BSU is doing certain things for their members. It's not just because, you know, we don't like other people, or like we're trying to be exclusive. Like it's not that, but it's to make sure that our Black students on campus have a space that they can, you know, feel comfortable and feel like themselves after having to, you know, adhere or conform to the kind of model that the UCSB student is supposed to be. And then it's like their space to kind of, you know, relax and be a Black student or a Black kid, you know, just kind of having fun. And then another thing I want to add to that is that space, that BSU space on campus is very important, because at the same time, you know, let me go to one experience that I had that I just remembered. My first year living in the dorm at Santa Rosa, it was the first couple of weeks, you know, I think it was during rush week. And you know, my friends and I, we're going to like the other dorms, going door to door, you know, saying hi, you know, trying to make friends, right? And then we found out that we went through all of the halls in Santa Rosa, and there were advertisements or like little papers to join a sorority, like a recruitment. And we were like, okay, cool. But when we went down to the Black Scholars Hall, there was no forms, or there was no advertisements for like the bigger sororities or for frats on campus. And we were like, you could advertise to all of the other floors in the Santa Rosa Hall, but not ours. So we thought that was a little suspicious, a little questionable. So I guess it's like instances like those that could take a toll, especially on a Black person living on this campus, when you look at how certain groups on campus are treating others and they're not treating you the same way. It's kind of, it feels a little anti-Black, you know, like this is the anti-Black awareness seminar, but it's like those types of instances that make Black students on campus feel like they don't belong and that they are not wanted, because they're not being reached out and asked, oh, do you want to join our sorority or whatever. And I know like sororities and frats have like their own like model, I guess, member. And then at the same time, you know, going through sorority and frats pages, it's like it's very, very hard to find a Black person or a Black representation. And then, you know, if I was an incoming freshman to UCSB and I'm like, oh, I want to join a sorority, and I scroll through their pages and see that, you know, I'm not being represented, I kind of, oh, there's someone raise their hand. How do I, oh my God. I guess Ellie, if you want to turn your mic on.
Oh, sorry. No, I didn't mean to like interrupt your thought. You can finish it.
Oh, no, go ahead. Please ask.
Okay.
I want to create conversation.
Okay. So, sorry. I feel like, I don't know, want you to feel like too burdened talking all the time. But recently I had the opportunity to attend like a queer and trans seminar as well. And I think something really important that they mentioned was that like this UC system, like the institutions here, the organizations here, they were not built for people of color. They were not built for like marginalized or minority people. And I know like how you say like it did, like you don't you don't have to like censor yourself and say like it kind of felt anti-Black, because it's kind of direct and obvious that it was an anti-Black sentiment that they were portraying. And fraternities and sororities, like their model member, the thing that they portray is kind of itself an anti-Black sentiment. So it's kind of, or not kind of, no, we don't have like stop, like we can stop using the word kind of, because it's kind of, it's very obvious.
It's true.
Yeah. And I know like it feels how the burden of creating these safe spaces feels like it's up to like Black students or like people of color, like, okay, now that we're coming into these institutions, and we're still like the minority in the groups, it's not only like our responsibility to create our own safe spaces, but we ask students who, like white students or students who have privilege, to also like acknowledge that they have their privilege, and acknowledge that like it's human decency to take on the responsibility to also create safe spaces for students who have been historically marginalized and underrepresented. It's not like the burden doesn't just fall on Black students or students of color. Like it's something that if we want to progress as society, that we all have to take on the burden of deconstructing and unlearning these systems of prejudice that have just been going on for forever.
Yeah. You put that so perfectly. Oh my God. Wow. Thank you. Yes. What she said was very accurate, because, you know, the history of popular, popular orgs or, you know, spaces on campus are inherently anti-Black, because the image that they are portraying of these spaces, and obviously those big name organizations happen to be the face of our school. It's like, but is that the type of representation that we want for our school, especially UCSB being on Native land and having a large population that's of people of color. And it's really important that, like, you know, it's like not everybody in the school looks like the way that the school is portraying. And I think it needs to do a better job of reaching out to groups of people, instead of, you know, kind of reaching out to people that will continue to like live on that image, if that makes sense. We had another question. Oh, another person. Alexa, I think I saw you raise your hand.
Hi. Yeah. I just wanted to chime in because I think in talking about the images that sorority, even other organizations can portray, just in like their image, talked about flyers, like their flyering indicative of anti-Blackness, and then so it is not uncommon at all to hear instances of transphobia, homophobia, racism, and even acts of violence based on those harmful mindsets. So I just wanted to chime in and say I'm sure that like, or a lot of people here might have heard of it, or even if you haven't, like a quick Google search could tell you that those mindsets and that messaging, even though like just like the instance of flyering might not seem as directly harmful, can really lead to like both mental and physical harm to marginalized people. So it's super important. So appreciate you sharing your like experience with that, because it's super meaningful.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I just also wanted to kind of bring this up just to keep in mind, I guess, in the Black community, there is a lot of transphobia and homophobia and misogyny. But that sense is kind of also rooted in, like, those types of phobias are rooted in white supremacy. But I guess like that is something like for my community to talk about, but it's just something to also keep in mind that even if a Black person is, or you engage with a Black person on campus that is expressing any form of homophobia, transphobia, colorism that is also anti-Black, despite them being a Black person and expressing that rhetoric is inherent. It is what it is. It's anti-Black because intersectionality exists, and there are Black queer people that could be harmed by that rhetoric. So it's really important to keep in mind to call out. Don't be afraid to call out homophobia and transphobia because literally it is so bad, and we really need to like be honing on homophobia and transphobia because it's so damaging, especially to the intersectionality aspect of being Black on campus. So just wanted to keep that in mind. Oh wow, it'll take me a bit to read these. Okay. Kyla, are you still in this call? I would love if you could unmute. Oh my God, where's she?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, awesome. But no, so something that experience I wanted to explain. So I know that you did explain your experience and how the sororities didn't put their flyers on the Black Scholars Hall. And for those who don't know, the Black Scholars Hall, it's not hard to miss. So it's not like they could have forgotten or anything like that. It's a pretty big, nice hall, if I'm being quite honest. I didn't live in that hall. I lived in another hall in Santa Rosa. Unfortunately, I didn't get the opportunity to live in Black Scholars Hall due to just other reasons dealing with UCSB. But going on from that, one of the experience I did want to say that I have to go through was, so we have something called Black Family Cookout that BSU does. It's an event where pretty much during family weekend, we have a separate thing in the MCC where there'll be barbecue being cooked, and those Black students can invite their family. They'll do games, talk about certain aspects happening in the community, whatnot. And I was volunteering during that event along my friend, and a group of students who happened to not be Black did come in, and they were not with their family at all. They came in and they literally sat down and ate food when you see everyone else with their families and since I was cleaning up other people's mess and whatnot. Matter of fact, the event is still going on. They're just like talking, just like, what is this? Like, why are they doing this? And in a way, I was a bit irritated, only for the fact that I understand that you don't have to be Black to come in this space, but the fact that you're in here with friends, joking, talking, eating the food that was provided for families, that is a little bit bothersome. Because what's the point of you being here in a family environment? And it was mainly Black people there, and also on the other side of the MCC, there was also, it was kind of like similar to what we were doing, except they were Hispanic. So for you to just come in this space where all these families are at just to get some food, that's a little bit, in a way, kind of not contradicting, but what was the point of doing that when you could easily find some food somewhere else? I understand we're all on a budget, we're all kind of broke, but that was just a little bit, to me, that was kind of disrespectful for someone to do that. And I've also had experiences going to IV. This is before the pandemic, and when people do get intoxicated, they do say some things that they probably, I don't know if they don't mean or not, but they have said some very hurtful words to some of my peers who happen to be Black, and they do happen to be racial slurs they have said to them. And on our end, some people don't realize, if they say a racial slur to us, we cannot be violent. Because if we're seen as the violent ones, we can be seen as the one who even started the altercation to police. And I've had experiences like that. I've had a lot of bad experiences with police, hence why I do sometimes have trust issues with them. So when that situation happened, my friends kind of had to walk away. And the situation was getting very escalated, and it wasn't on our end, it was on the drunk person's end, who they did not happen to be Black. And I do try to be very open-minded on how I understand people who are not of color want to empathize with us and want to learn from us. But sometimes the way you guys try to learn, you try to learn through your friends who are not of color. And that can hurt other people of color because they don't know what we're going through. They're just assuming, or they're learning stuff through the book. That doesn't help. Another experience, I was in Black Studies 1 class, and we were pretty much learning things about slavery. And a girl attacked me. She did happen to be white, and she apologized to me. And I asked her, "What are you apologizing to me for?" She's like, "I'm sorry for what my people done to you." And that some people might understand, oh, well, that's a harmful thing to say, like it's not that serious. To me, that's very extremely irritating. And this happened a lot more during when George Floyd passed away, of people apologizing to me. On my personal opinion on that, I feel like do not apologize to me unless you personally, you yourself as a person, has done something to hurt my community. Because if you haven't done anything to hurt the community, all I've asked you is just give us support to educate yourself, to educate others. That's all I ask for, because you can't do anything from what your ancestors did because they already passed away and the damage has already been done. So all you can do is do what you can right now. But apologizing to me really won't do anything, pretty much. But I just wanted to say that a little bit. I talked a little bit too long.
No, it's really cool. Hallie raised your hand. Please unmute your mic.
My
Hey.
camera might look rough right now. But hi, Alinta. Oh my God. And thank you for facilitating this. It's very hard to be one person and doing all of this, but
No problem.
I just wanted to emphasize what Kyla was saying about her experience at the Black Family Cookout. There is such a big reason why like there's a movement now to say like Black and POC, because when we are all lumped together as communities of color, our Blackness and the experiences that we go through are very, very different from other communities of color, because anti-Blackness exists in all of those communities. I mean, some of the worst like microaggressions, like serious aggressions that I've ever experienced were from other people of color, like not white people. So I think what I'm trying to say here is that if you are in a community of color and not Black, please try to educate your family and friends. Like, please donate to a GoFundMe. Like, please do something else besides trying to group our experiences together. And kind of like Kyla said again, if you're white and feel guilty, please don't send me an email or try to tell me that you feel sorry about your ancestors or whatever transgressions you might have committed. Please take the time to educate yourself. Google is free. We are not. Our labor means something. That's all I have to say.
I guess like thank you for that, FYI. Another thing I wanted to bring up is, you know, on the topic of racial slurs, if you are a non-Black person and you go like, oh, but my Black friend allows me to say the N-word, or my Black friend says I can wear braids, your one Black friend does not speak for the entire Black community. And it's very kind of a head scratch moment, because that racial slur still doesn't belong to you. And you trying to justify it by saying, oh, well, my friend allows me to say it, kind of undermines the millions and millions of Black people that would probably not want you to say that word. And then at the same time, it's like, why would you even want to say that word in the first place? The word that has harmed so many Black people, the word that has caused so much pain and suffering, and the word that has been uttered out of people before Black people were killed or brutalized. Like, that word is so demeaning and dehumanizing. For a non-Black person to say it, it's like a slap in the face. Like, why? You know? Okay, Brianni, you can turn on your mic. Please speak into the mic.
I just want to say thank you for like doing this and taking your time to facilitate this. And I just want to stress the importance of this seminar and especially my experience with anti-Blackness and how many more people that I know in Black Scholars Hall and how many people I know that dropped out due to anti-Blackness. They were just so stressed about how many racial slurs are being called or being stared at, like glared at by random people on campus every single day, and just be treated like an anomaly or like an alien on campus. So I think it's just really important to take this seriously to protect and like continue building our communities on campus to ensure that not only we're allowed to be on campus, but we stay on campus and grow bigger. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. That's really important because, you know, the reality is like the way you, even the way you look at us could have such a huge impact on how Black students feel on campus, because at the same time we want to be treated as human beings. We're students just like you. We're just trying to get our degree, yet we still feel ostracized and kind of alienated by the culture of the UCSB campus kind of being like predominantly white and looking a certain way. And, you know, if I express my Blackness by 100%, it's like, oh, like, why are you wearing that? Or why do you do this? And then it's a lot of ostracizing that we go through. And, you know, just keep in mind that we're people and, you know, we're just trying to go through school as best as we can, because even like some of the Black students on campus are the first ones to go to college from their families. And it's a huge deal, and it can be very overwhelming if they don't feel like they belong on that campus, because then it's that pressure of being Black on a predominantly white campus, and it's just an overwhelming feeling. And I'm just gonna go through the questions again. Yeah, so I guess I'll go into the topic of colorism, because colorism is rooted in anti-Blackness, yet it exists in almost literally every single culture, and especially the concept of being lighter means you're more European, so therefore you're more beautiful or more better than the person who looks more Black. And then it's very kind of a slap in the face, because literally it's like your own community, you feel as if your own community hates you because of the way you look, and you feel as if you don't belong in that community because of the way you look. And it's kind of it's a very awful feeling. And I guess because colorism, anti-Blackness is a passed down mindset, it's very, very critical to educate, you know, your peers and your parents maybe that have taught you these ideals and have taught you that, like, oh, being Black is not desirable, or you should have lighter skin, you should do this, do that to look more European, because in our society, looking more European is more desirable. Another thing that I want to bring up is POC erasure, because I've just noticed this recently, when, you know, women or European or Caucasian women are doing plastic surgery to, you know, encompass more of a racially ambiguous look, and to, like, you know, appear to look more African by blackfishing or wearing box braids, wearing cornrows, when those protective hairstyles have such a historical impact, and to them it's just a hairstyle, it's just a trend. Well, when Black people were doing it, it was seen as ugly, disgusting, ghetto, and, you know, just not it. But when the Kardashians start wearing box braids, start wearing trends that have been started by Black people, it's now like the cool thing. Yes, tanning to the point where you look darker than a Black person is just a very questionable mindset to have. But how does this go into POC erasure is when people of color are starting to be told that they look white or they want to look like Kylie Jenner because of the way they look, or their literal genetics is now being compared to a white person who paid thousands of dollars to look that way. And when you say someone looks more white or someone looks more European, that is POC erasure. That is not, especially, I would say, like, that shouldn't be taken as a compliment, but you're literally going into their identity and taking away the fact that they are people of color because they look more white. Because they look more white and more desirable, they're superior. And at the same time, it's like that mindset is so toxic and like disrespectful to the culture of that person, the amount of, you know, maybe the discrimination that they faced when they were a child, and for the way that they look, and now that look is the beauty standard and now everybody wants to look that way. It creates a kind of a conflicting mindset, like, oh, because I did it, I'm not good enough, but because she did it, it's good enough. And now, you know, it's like my skin color, my hair texture, my ethnic features are not a trend. It's not a fashion statement. And it's not, you know, something a white girl should be mimicking on the cover of Vogue or Gucci. And it's not gatekeeping, because that's literally how I look. And then at the end of the day, it's very important to keep in mind, you know your cultural boundaries and the difference between appropriation and appreciation. Because you can appreciate a culture by respectfully wearing the garments properly and showing respect to the people, understanding and knowing the culture. Or you could just use that culture for an aesthetic or a trend and just, you know, misuse it and disrespect thousands of people and be ignorant to that culture's traditions and traits. So that's also very important. Yeah, so it's very important to keep in mind that Blackness or acting Eurocentric is not something to be praised, because people will use AAVE, African American English, vernacular English, especially as like internet lingo, or they call it like a trendy lingo, like saying queen, cis, period, or they might use AAVE wrong when they just literally don't know what it is and they're just using it because it's trendy and cool. Well, AAVE is one of the oldest forms of communication between Black people, because when the slave trade was prevalent, you know, Black people were taken from all over the continent, different cultures, different languages, different lifestyles, different tribes, different ethnicities, all being put together on a slave ship and taken to a foreign country. You were literally, imagine being taken away from your normal lifestyle and being crammed into a boat with hundreds of people you don't even know how to speak to. You don't know where they came from or who they are. but somehow in like, you know, years pass, you're able to create and generate your own language through African American English vernacular and be able to communicate through that, you know, as time goes on. But then when all of a sudden it's now trendy and cool to use those words, it's erasing the importance of it. And especially when we were told that, oh, you're dumb, you're ghetto for using those words, like you're not talking properly, that's not real English. Well, now it's cute and trendy to be on Twitter and be like, oh, period, cis, whatever, T. And at the same time, it like that is also POC, not POC, Black erasure, and kind of undermining the prevalence of that language, because AVE is a language. And I think that's, I'm gonna go into it. Yeah. The whole pretty for a Black girl concept, or educated for a Black person, goes into that anti-Blackness and says AVE is not a real language because it was started by Black people, so it's not valid. But this Black person speaks proper English, or is pronouncing all of their words correctly, so they're obviously smarter, or they're better because they dress nicer, or they look a certain way, they look more palatable for society, so they're better than Black people that are more more ghetto, more loud, more expressive of themselves. And just because a Black person chooses to dress a certain way, or speak a certain way, or like certain things, doesn't mean they're any less or more Black than other people. You know, I could be Black and like country and horseback riding, and that doesn't make me any less Black than the person who likes hip hop and likes to dance, or, you know, traditionally ideas or stereotypical ideas that society has for what a Black person should like. And again, there's no one definition for Blackness, so I guess that's like the one thing that I want you to take away from this, is there is no specific idea of what Blackness should look like, because there is such a large spectrum for being Black, and respecting your Black peers' enjoyments and the hobbies that they like to do is so important, because they can feel invalidated by saying, oh, why would you like that? Like, that is not something I would expect people like you to like. And it goes into and perpetuates the stereotype of what a Black person should be, and it puts a lot of pressure on them, because they feel like they're expected to behave a certain way, when in reality you're a human being as well. You should be able to enjoy things that you genuinely want to enjoy. And that's all I want to put on that. And back to the cultural appropriation thing, it's such a slap in the face, honestly, to like see a non-Black celebrity be like rename or reclaim a piece of culture that has existed for hundreds of years, and they're like, oh, well, I like this and I'm going to capitalize on it, and I'm not going to, you know, support Black Lives Matter. I'm not going to put resources on my bio, because why would I? At Kylie Jenner, when she literally has a Black daughter and has no Black resources on her bio. She has, like, she is one of the most influential people on the planet yet doesn't take the time to provide resources for people who look like her own daughter that are being brutalized and attacked and assaulted almost every single day. And that just like doesn't sit right with me. But you know, I guess like what the best thing a non-Black person could do and is just educate themselves and make sure that you are, you know, being an outlet, not an outlet, just making sure that, you know, you are treating your Black peers like they are what they are. They're your peers. They are also students like you. And I see Brianni has her hand raised. So, Brianni.
Oh no, I forgot to put my hand down. My bad.
Oh, okay. And yeah, that's kind of the biggest thing I want everyone to take away. Okay, there's another comment. Yeah, so it's kind of ironic because almost every single music genre that has been created, besides like classical or opera, is rooted in Black culture, because it goes back to slavery, because music was one of the biggest ways Black people coped with slavery, is like through song and through expression of music. And it's really important to understand that your favorite music genres were literally started from Black people. And I believe let's go to and it's just very important to keep in mind that the music genres you enjoy, the fashion trends that you like, and you know, the makeup looks that you like doing, even, or the hairstyles you like doing, they were originated from Black people. And at the same time, you know, you enjoy our culture, and it'd be, you know, only right for you to support us in our times of need, especially when you enjoy the expression that we put out in the world. And especially, another thing that I want to add is the criminalization of rap music is anti-Black for multiple reasons. Rap music is simply a music genre that is predominantly Black, and through rap also is an acronym. I don't know if you guys knew this, but rhythm and poetry, the two main aspects that make up rap music. And you know, I know a lot of music today that is rap doesn't have the best lyrics, but if you go into the origins of rap and you go into certain rap artists like Tupac, Biggie, like if you read their lyrics and understand the poetry and the expression that goes into rap music, it can be very, very eye-opening to see that it's not just, you know, a sick beat and like some auto-tune. Like, their rap music that talks about real things that real Black kids go through in, like, for example, South Central LA or lower income areas where they basically have to fight to survive. And, you know, a lot of communities that don't understand this, they're sitting and listening to this music like, oh, this music sounds so good. But once you take the time to uncover and go inside and actually understand what these lyrics stand for, you get a better understanding of what the Black experience really is. Because again, Black people's I would say their most powerful form of self-expression is through music. So just keep in mind when you're listening to rap music, or when your parents or relatives are like, Black music is evil, and just kind of keep in mind and be like, rap music is just another form of self-expression for Black people. And yes, there are non-Black people in rap, but then you have to understand the genre itself is centralized on the Black experience. So it's very important to keep that in mind and understand why it's so important to know certain names, I guess, in the industry, or certain artists especially. I would say one of the biggest names to know is Nipsey Hussle, because of the amount that he's done for the Black community and how much his music expresses the real life struggles and hardships that Black people go through on a daily. It's very eye-opening when you read some of his lyrics. So that's all I have to say on that subject. Any more questions, topics to go through? Okay. Well, I think I've covered okay, well, I think I've covered the majority of what I want to talk about in this. And I really appreciate you guys, engaging and discussing with me, because it really makes me happy to know that there are peers on my campus who stand up for me and realize a lot of the stuff that we go through, or Black students go through on campus, and at least like work towards a better understanding, and continue being a support system for Black students, especially when celebrities or people are passing on, and then it's harder for our community to especially kind of recover from certain instances. For example, Chadwick Boseman's passing hit me hard, because he was such a important person in adding to representing Black people on screen. Black Panther was, I think, the first big screen picture to have an all Black cast. And kind of as you see the evolution of media and how it portrays Black people, we went from being criminals and treated like animals in The Birth of a Nation to going to being superheroes, is such a dramatic shift in our identity. And it's so important, and it's so important to understand that Chadwick Boseman, he was not just Black Panther, but he was Chadwick Boseman himself as a human being. He gave so much hope to people that are Black kids, and his passing means a lot to a lot of people, especially since him and the cast of Black Panther were a huge milestone in representation for Black people on the big screen. So just keep that in mind. Very important to understand that if Black people have an attachment to certain celebrities or certain people that represent them on the media, it's literally because we did not have proper representation until recently. We were either seen as criminals, animals, or maids for majority of, I guess, say like the beginning of television or the movie era. So now that we're getting into more representation, more POC representation, it's so important to be encouraging and be, you know, supportive of your Black peers when they get excited when they see an all Black cast movie, or when they see an all POC cast movie, because we're getting a lot of firsts this past decade, a lot of firsts for a lot of POC communities and especially the Black community. So that keep in mind. Okay, for BSU, so a diverse campus, I don't want to make it like, oh, you have to be POC to like be representing us. Like, I don't want to say that, but I cannot stress the importance of representation when incoming freshmen see Black students in STEM, or when Latinx students see Latinx people in a STEM major, or, you know, kind of pushing forward, starting their own research programs. It is very inspiring because they see people that look like them doing great things, and they're like, oh, if they can do it, I can do it as well. And it's very encouraging. To me, it was so encouraging to see a panel of Black students that were able to find success through UCSB, or to find resources. And I was like, this school looks like it can be the best for me, because look how it benefited these people on the student panel. So I would say representation matters, and, you know, physical representation is important, but at the same time, you obviously want to value character over skin color, I would say. So as long as the person has the mindset and has educated themselves and has understood, especially if they are white, they know they're privileged, and they know they have certain advantages against other communities, and as long as they use their privilege to help communities, that is the most important thing, I would say, that would be beneficial. Like, using your privilege is so important. I needed to emphasize it again, because again, in our society, white voices are more amplified just in general to Black voices. But at the same time, it's, you know, as long as we have multiple people voicing for marginalized communities, at the end of the day, it's going to be beneficial for those said communities, because we have multiple voices from multiple groups backing them up. So that's all I want to put. Anything else? This has been a great conversation so far. Okay, well, I don't really have anything else to add. Thank you so much for creating this space and allowing me to talk in this space, and allowing everyone to, you know, express their experiences and feelings and questions, comments, concerns. And thank you guys again. If you have any more questions, BSU is like, just hit me up, I guess. And one thing I guess really want you to take away from this conversation is treat your Black peers like you would treat any other student on campus, because we are just students like you, and we're just trying to get through our major, and, you know, we are more than our skin color and our history and our background, and we are just trying to, you know, pave our way and try to create our own path and be better for ourselves. So that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.